MD pathology examination. She has passed her MBBS from Government Medical College, Meerut. He was working as Associate Professor in Pathology Department, EY Patil Medical College, Kolhapur. At present, he is Chief Consultant Pathologist at Shanti Pathology Laboratory in Kolhapur for the last 15 years. She gained neuropathology experience at Nimans, Bengaluru, Tata Memorial Hospital, Mumbai, Bombay Hospital, Mumbai, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, New York. Her areas of interest are neuropathology and immunohistochemistry. She has many publications to her credit and has been a speaker at various conferences. She is a member of Neuropathology Association of India and a member of IAPM. She has authored a book titled Neuropathology of Brain Tumors with Radiologic Correlates, which has been widely acclaimed all over the globe. This has been published by Springer Publications. The book is highly illustrated, featuring about 400 high-quality colored images. It covers MR images, intraoperative cytology, histopathology, and immunohistochemistry with microphotographs with various brain and spine tumors. Detailed information about differential diagnosis, molecular diagnosis, and prognosis of each tumor has been elaborated in this book. Some typical and rare presentations are also presented in this book, along with special stains, allowing quick and accurate reporting. The radiological and pathological correlates of brain and spine tumors serve as a ready reference resource for residents, neuropathologists, neuroradiologists, neurosurgeons, neuro-oncologists, and research scientists. I wish her plenty of success in her endeavor, and I also wish her a bright future. With this, I hand over the mic to Sunita.
Thank you, sir, for an illustrative, elaborative introduction. Before starting the webinar, I would like to make some announcements. So, attendance throughout the session is must, and submitting the duly formed feedback form is mandatory for e-certificates. Okay, and any query related to the subject, related to the webinar, you can always post it on the chat box, or else you can type it in the WhatsApp group. Okay, and they will be attended at the end of the session. Now, without making further delay, we'll start with webinar. Ma'am, I request you to start the webinar. Dr. Meghna Chogle, ma'am. First. Restart. नहीं टाइमर भी हो सकता है. हाँ स्लाइड 1 करेक्ट है. शुरू करो ना. क्यों you are screen sharing. देखो ना नहीं हो रहा.
Good morning, everybody. At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Mahadev Mane sir for inviting me for this session, as well as the organizing team. But due to certain reasons, I won't be able to give my presentation live. My apologies for that. Today, I'll be presenting some of the cases which I really found challenging during my practice. So let us start. I start with my presentation.
Audible.
Good morning, everybody. At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Mahadev Mane sir for inviting me for this session, as well as the organizing team. But due to certain reasons, I won't be able to give my presentation live. My apologies for that. Today, I'll be presenting some of the cases which I really found challenging during my practice. So let us start. I start with my presentation. So how should we approach towards diagnosis of a brain tumor? Most important thing is the clinical features, age of the patient, location of the tumor, and relevant clinical history.
Full screen.
Now, certain pediatric tumors, embryonal tumors have a specific location. For example, posterior fossa tumors. Pilocytic astrocytomas are also common, cerebellar pilocytic astrocytomas. The age and the location of the tumor gives us
Full screen.
fairly diagnosis that what depends on radiology. So the patient undergoes MRI, CT scan, MR spectroscopy. When the tumor comes to the pathology lab, we do intraoperative diagnosis. In that, imprint cytology, squash smears, and frozen sections are done. Then the tissue is processed and we do the histologic typing, subtyping, and the grade of tumor. Later on, immunohistochemistry, molecular genetics, and so let us see what are intraaxial tumors. So the tumors which are located within the brain parenchyma, and these arise from the brain cells. On imaging, peritumoral vasogenic white matter edema is usually known. Examples of intraaxial tumors are all the diffuse astrocytic and oligodendroglial tumors of grade 2, 3, 4, neuronal and mixed neuronal glial tumors, the low-grade astrocytomas such as pilocytic astrocytoma and PXAs, ependymal tumors, the embryonal tumors, and cerebral metastasis. What are extraaxial tumors? These are the tumors which are located outside the brain parenchyma and they arise from the structures lining the brain or the tissue surrounding it. So on imaging, what you see is there is presence of CSF or vascular cleft between the mass and the adjacent brain parenchyma. The cortex appears displaced or buckled, and usually these are broad based towards the dura and they show reactive bony changes. So the examples are meningioma, dural based metastasis, hemangiopericytoma, solitary fibrous tumor, Ewing sarcoma, schwannoma, and the tumors arising from skull bones, epidermoid cyst, arachnoid cysts, and others. Now, what are intraventricular tumors? The tumors which are located within the ventricle, as the name suggests, and they may arise from the lining of the ventricles and the choroid plexus and periventricular structures. Now, the examples are of the tumors, those arise from the ventricular wall and the septum pellucidum, are ependymoma, central neurocytoma, SEGA, choroid plexus tumors like such as papilloma, carcinoma, and the atypical papilloma. Other intraventricular tumors such as meningioma, metastasis, intraventricular oligodendroglioma, pilocytic astrocytoma, glioblastoma, intraventricular CNS lymphoma, medulloblastoma, sarcomas, etc. And also the non-neoplastic lesions such as colloid cyst, neurocysticercosis, hydatid cyst, and tuberculosis. Now, why should a pathologist know neuroimaging? So, when we receive the tumor for intraoperative diagnosis, our diagnosis becomes quick and efficient if we know the location of the tumor, if we know how the tumor appears on MRI. It is also helpful on histopathology, such as some of the tumors have typical presentation on radiology. For example, gangliogliomas, these are usually located in the temporal lesion and they show minimal or no peritumoral edema. The pilocytic astrocytomas are typically solid cystic tumors. Cavernomas have typically popcorn appearance. Now on neuroimaging, if you know the intra or the extraaxial location of the tumor, our diagnosis becomes very easy. Then we get to know the margins, whether they are circumscribed or they are indistinct or infiltrating. This gives us idea about what grade tumor it is. And if the biopsy is taken from the margins, whether it is the representative biopsy or not, once you know the location of the tumor, it becomes much more easy. So on MRI, we see whether the tumors are solid cystic. For example, meningiomas, which are extraaxial tumors, show mainly solid cystic appearance and these are homogeneous. Now the tumors which are solid and heterogeneous, these are usually high-grade tumors which show necrosis and hemorrhage. Now the other solid cystic tumors are pilocytic astrocytomas, gangliogliomas, hemangioblastomas. Now the tumors which typically show cysts with mural nodules, they are pilocytic astrocytomas and pleomorphic xanthoastrocytomas. Now, perfusion spectroscopy and contrast study helps us in predicting the high grade of the tumor. I mean, they predict the grade of the tumor. So the tumors which show more perfusion, these are the tumors which show more neoangiogenesis, which indicates the grade of the tumor. Now, this peritumoral edema, this is more in high grade tumors than in the low grade tumors. Now, if we do the CT scan, calcification is more appreciated. For example, meningiomas or oligodendrogliomas, ependymomas, central neurocytomas, they show typical calcification, and the calcification also there are different patterns of calcification which is seen or which a radiologist reports. So let us have a look at the anatomical distribution of the major brain tumors. So if we remember this chart, especially for the beginners, we shot down the list of differential diagnosis. Okay, so let's start with the cases. Case 1, a 65-year-old woman presented with convulsions and hemiplegia. On MRI, a well-defined heterogeneous, predominantly extra-axial right parietal tumor measuring 3.9 into 5.1 into 3.5 centimeters, abutting the underlying cortices, was noted. It appeared hypointense on T1 weighted, and on T2 weighted, it appeared hyperintense with multiple intralesional cystic foci within. On post-contrast, it showed marked heterogeneity and lesional enhancement with non-enhancing cystic component and enhancing dural-based solid component within. So the radiologist suggested possibility of cystic meningioma. Now again, let's have a look. So as it was called an extraaxial tumor, so the tumors arising from meninges, that is meningioma or SFT, HPC, Ewing sarcoma or METS was thought of. So these are the differential diagnosis in these tumors. Then we received in lab a single, you can see it's a well circumscribed tumor, oval gray white to gray brown soft tumor. Dural flap was present with it, and the tumor measured 4.8 into 4 into 3 centimeters, and cut section of the tumor showed soft gray white to yellowish areas. So intraoperative diagnosis was done on squash and frozen study, and the tumor is densely cellular, composed of oval to spindle neoplastic cells. Cellular atypia was minimal, increased vascularity was noted. So considering the extraction location of the tumor with the dural attachment, a high-grade spindle cell tumor with increased vascularity was informed to the neurosurgeon, possibly SFT HPC of a high-grade or anaplastic meningioma. Now, on histology, it was a highly cellular tumor. The tumor cells were oval, elongated, having vesicular nuclei. Some had very prominent nucleoli and scanty eosinophilic cytoplasm. Minimal nuclear pleomorphism was noted, and almost there was no multinucleation. But brisk microsis and microvascular proliferation was noted, and even necrosis was found. So you can see the slide, it shows microvascular proliferation and necrosis. So what do you think it could be? We did immunohistochemistry and again consider, yeah, and so on histopathology, a differential diagnosis of SFT, HPC, anaplastic meningioma, and yes, glioblastoma was also thought of. So immunohistochemistry was done, and it was an so GFAP and S100 were strongly positive, which suggested that which concluded it was a glial tumor. It was IDH wild type tumor. P53 expression was present, ATRX retained. Now CD99 and FLI1 came focally strongly positive, but as you know, this could be a non-specific finding in CNS or any aberrant differentiation. EMA was negative, which ruled out the possibility of meningioma. CD34 STAT6 negative ruled out SFT HPC, and the MIB1 was high. It was 18 to 20%. So this was a very high grade. So a diagnosis of glioblastoma, IDH wild type, WHO grade 4 was made. So as you all know, based on their IDH status, the glioblastomas are IDH wild type, IDH mutant, and NOS. The wild type account for 90% and mutant account for 10%. Now, IDH wild type glioblastomas, these are the glioblastomas which lack mutation in the IDH1 or 2 genes, and it has three variants: the giant cell glioblastoma, epithelioid glioblastoma, and gliosarcoma. The giant cell and the epithelioid glioblastomas are typically found in children and younger age group, younger adults, and the prognosis or the survival is better as compared to the conventional molecular features of the primary and the secondary glioblastomas. So the IDH wild type, as we call them, primary glioblastomas, arise de novo, whereas glioblastoma IDH mutant arise from a pre-existing low-grade tumor. Wild type account for 90%, whereas mutant for 10%. The median age is 62 years in the wild fury and features of lumbar radiculopathy. She also presented with forgetfulness. So complete brain and spine image was done. So MRI revealed 0.3 centimeters. It showed heterogeneous enhancing mass on flare and T1 and
क्यों वो शुरू कैसे तो करना है ना ये लोग क्यों चले जाते हैं मैं म्यूट की
post contrast T1 weight images. Now, what comes to our mind? Let us have a look at the same diagram. So, this was a ventricular tumor. This the differential diagnosis coming is to us is a high-grade glial tumor, possibly glioblastoma or anaplastic ependymoma. Anaplastic oligos are very rare and they show calcification. It was not seen in this case. The second possibility was intraventricular meningioma or typical neurocytoma, metastasis, and SEGA. Now, SEGA is subependymal giant cell astrocytoma. This is usually found in younger age group, and these are grade 1 tumors. But sometimes they are found incidentally in elderlies as well. So this is what we received to in our lab. It was multiple irregular and it showed firm gray white firm areas. Now on intraoperative cytology, we found these smears were tough to crush and it showed two components. So it was basically a mixed tumor, showed fascicles of spindle cell component and we could see the neoplastic glial component. So you can see I have marked the neoplastic glial component with the arrows and you can see the fascicles of the spindle cells. So again in this diagram you can see a large tumor giant cells with astrocytic differentiation. It has high NC ratio and prominent nucleoli. So a high-grade glial tumor was informed to the neurosurgeon. On histology, we found a biphasic tumor predominantly composed of sarcomatous elements in form of fascicles and interspersed neoplastic glial fluid. So then we did immunohistochemistry on this, and what was found is the tumor revealed GFA plaque was positive in the glial component and negative in the sarcomatous element, whereas special stain reticulin was
ये
done
black one नहीं है कुछ
present.
नहीं सर मैडम
So the negative markers were EMA, meningioma.
काफी लो on close
It was IDH non-mutant tumor. So a diagnosis of gliosarcoma WHO grade 4 is made.
तुम्ही जाऊ ना आपण
Now, gliosarcomas are IDH wild-type tumors which account for approximately 2% of glioblastomas affecting adults in 40 to 60 years age group. Mainly located in the cerebral hemisphere, temporal lobe is most commonly affected. They arise in or in a patient who post-treatment phase of glioblastomas, and they are firm. Microscopy will reveal firm, well-circumscribed tumors because of the high connective tissue content in it. Whenever they are attached to dura, they mimic like METs or meningioma. So we have already discussed the intraoperative histology. And on histology, they show biphasic pattern, that is admixture of gliomatous and sarcomatous tissue. The glial component of the is in form of glioblastoma, mainly showing astrocytic differentiation. However, oligodendroglioma or ependymal element may also be noted. The sarcomatous component, it shows fibrosarcoma or malignant fibrous histiocytoma, and they exhibit nuclear otypia, mitotic activity, and necrosis. The mesenchymal differentiation could be in form of any cartilage, bone, osteoid, chondroid, smooth or striated muscles, and any lipomatous features. Epithelioid differentiation may be in form of sarcomatous features with gland formation or squamous metaplasia, and it may even show presence of primitive neuronal elements. Now let's go to case 3. A 50-year-old man presented with headache and delirium, and on MRI revealed a heterogeneous extraaxial dural base mass showing skull bone erosion and extending up to the scalp. So what is your diagnosis here? You can again recollect that chart. So the DDs on MRI, which we thought was aggressive meningioma, metastasis, lymphoma, and a high-grade glial tumor. So we did intraoperative cytology, and the smears were densely cellular. You can see it is basically looks like a blue cell tumor. The tumor cells are very compactly placed, and they are ovoid and have scanty cytoplasm, and the individual cell appears like naked nuclei, and the intervening stroma is very scanty. So it was the neurosurgeon was informed that this is a spindle cell tumor with increased mitotic activity, high vascularity. So it could be either a typical or anaplastic meningioma, SFT-HPC, or Ewing's. Of course, Ewing's does not fit into this age group, but it looked like a blue cell tumor is present. So a diagnosis, you can see this. CD34 positive in the blood vessels and negative in the neoplastic cells, and nuclear STAT6 stained positive. Vimentin was positive throughout, and MIP1 was high. So a diagnosis of solitary fibrous tumor, hemangiopericystoma, WHO grade 3 was made. Now let us have a look at the solitary fibrous tumor phenotype. These are grade 1 tumors, whereas HPC phenotypes are grade 2 or 3 tumors. The SFTs are usually patternless tumors and they show short fascicular pattern of the tumor cells. And the morphology of the cells here is the cells are uniform, ovoid to spindle shape with round to oval nuclei which have moderately dense chromatin and scanty cytoplasm, whereas the cells in HPC are similar. Now, the difference is in the stroma. The SFT stroma is usually very abundant and it is typically collagenized, which it will show thick and thick bands in the stroma. So we see the tumor to be, showing hypocellular and hypercellular areas, and the blood vessels are typically thin and branched. Whereas in the HPC variant, the stroma is scanty, pericellular collagen is present. The typical thick collagen bands which are found in SFT are not present in HPC, and the blood vessels are thin walled, branched, and they will show stagon like pattern. Now in SFTs the mitosis is usually less than 3 per 10 high power field, whereas in the HPC variant the mitosis for the grade 2, now they will be grade 2 or 3 in the HPC variant, so HPC phenotype. So for the grade 2 the mitosis is less than 5, uh, the mitosis will be less than 5 per 10 high power field, and for the grade 3 the mitosis should be more than 5 per 10 high power field. The solitary fibrous phenotype, as I already said, they are mostly benign in nature, and the treatment of choice is gross total resection, whereas HPC phenotype, they show high recurrence rate. They may have intra or extracranial metastasis, and adjuvant radiotherapy may be beneficial in grade 2 or 3 HPCs. So now let us have a quick look, because meningioma is the most commonly occurring extraaxial tumor. So meningiomas are grade 1, grade 2, WHO grade 1, 2 and 3. These are the histological variants. So grade 1 are mostly benign and they show lower risk of recurrence. Now the mitotic activity in the grade 1 tumor are, it is mitotic activity is absent or rare, whereas the MIB1 is less than 4%. Now grade 2 will show chordoid meningioma, clear cell atypical variant. At least 3 of 5 parameters should be present, and the incidence of these tumors is 6%, and there is increased likelihood of recurrence. Now the mitotic count should be between 4 to 19 per 10 high power field, and the MIB1, if it is more than 4%, then there is increased likelihood of recurrence. Now the grade 3 are rarely found with an incidence of 1 to 3%. They have malignant potential, they metastasize, the mitotic activity goes more than 20 per 10 high power field, and the MIB1 is proliferation index is also more than 20%. So let us go to case 4. A 22-year-old woman, she presented with 32 weeks pregnancy, and she had pregnancy-induced hypertension and intraventricular bleed. Now, CT scan was done, and a large, well-defined lobulated intraventricular mass lesion was found in the ventricles involving the interventricular septum, and along with areas of hemorrhages. Now, this lady LSCS was done, and later on she was operated, and a blood clot was found, and that was sent for pathological evaluation. We did not do any intraoperative cytology or frozen, because it was a blood clot and it was a very precious tissue. So on histology, we found predominantly blood clot, and you can see only this was a scanty tumor. The tumor cells are uniform, round. They had central round vesicular nuclei and moderate amount of clear cytoplasm. No atypia and no mitotic activity was noted. So a differential diagnosis of central neurocytoma, ependymoma, oligodendroglioma was thought of. So we did immunohistochemistry and it was synaptophysin positive, GFAP negative, so the possibility of glial tumor ruled out, EMA negative ruled out, meningioma, cytokeratin ruled out, cytokeratin negative ruled out, metastatic carcinoma. We all know that RCC Mets also resemble, they show clear cell morphology. And the MIB1 was low, that is, it was almost less than 2%. So a diagnosis of central neurocytoma, WHO grade 2 was. So the take home messages and what I learned was that we should never discard a blood clot. It should always be subject to histopathological evaluation. So this is the post-op MRI of this patient. We can see the residual tumor and this patient is still doing well, and she was, I think, operated in 2016 and she is having a regular follow-ups. Central neurocytomas and the cerebellar liponeurocytoma, as the name suggests, they are located in the cerebellar region and they have favorable prognosis. So central neurocytomas, these are found in young adults. Variants are found in the fourth decade. Necrosis and no necrosis is found. So one differential diagnosis is oligodendron. So on histology, we see monomorphic tumor cells in sheets, ribbons, or perivascular pattern. You can see the blood vessel is typically arborizing vasculature which separates the tumor cells, and the nuclei are round, having finely speckled nuclear chromatin and clear cytoplasm. You can see in the first slide there are abundant foci of calcification. Ganglion cells or homocyte rosettes may be found, and mitosis or necrosis is absent or rare. So the MIB1 is less than 1%, and in the atypical it goes more than 2%. These are GFAP, IDH, and P53 non-mutant tumors. So let's have a look at the differential diagnosis of central neurocytomas and their IHC markers. So CN are typically synaptophysin positive and they are GFAP and olig negatives, whereas oligodendrogliomas, they are IDH mutant and GFAP positive tumors. The pineocytomas have they express synaptophysin, but their location is very typical, and ependymomas are EMA positive tumors, EMA positive and GFAP positive tumors. So let's have a look at the case 5. A 39-year-old man presented with a recurrent tumor over his forehead. He was previously operated in 1994, 2014, and now this year in 2021. You can see the huge tumor. Okay, so So MRI revealed multilobated soft tissue density lesion along bifrontal regions, and the largest lesion showed central non-enhancing area, which was likely to be cystic, and that measured 6.2 into 7.8 into 6.6 centimeters. It was ISO to hypointense on T1, and on T2 flare it was hyperintense, and post contrast it was showing heterogeneous and were present, and a cut section of the mass revealed firm gray white areas, and you can see the central yellowish areas as well. So on histology, it was a hypercellular spindle cell tumor. The neoplastic cells were found in streaming and intersecting fascicles. Cellular atypia was present. Now the nuclei were fusiform and they had moderate amount of cytoplasm. The mitotic activity in the proliferative areas was 5 to 6 per 10 high power field, and in the lesser cellular areas it showed differentiation of the nerve sheath cells. The intervening stroma was scanty, and in some places it showed myxoid change, and necrosis was present. So you can see the histology. So these are the lesser cellular areas showing Schwannian differentiation. The cells are typically spindle cells with wavy elongated nuclei having tapering ends. And now the second slide shows densely cellular areas with complete loss of neurofibroma architecture and mitotic activities present. And the third slide shows necrosis. What comes to your mind? Okay, so we did immunohistochemistry. S100 and SOX10 was negative. P53, SMA, Desmin, HMB45 negative. Now CD34 was expressed. CD34 is expressed in HPCs, in synovial sarcomas, epithelioid sarcomas, but STAT6 was negative, so HPC was ruled out. And as I told you, this was a recurrent tumor. I'll come to the diagnosis later on. So the other possibilities of synovial sarcoma and epithelioid sarcomas were automatically ruled out. It expressed CD99. Fly1 was found to be negative, and the MIP1 index was high. It was 10 to 12. Sorry, 15 to 18%. So you can see this, the first slide is SOX10 negative, S100 negative, HMB45 was negative, CD9 99 was expressed, CD34 was expressed, STAT6 negative. So what do you think it is? So a diagnosis of malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor of a high grade was made. It was a recurrent tumor over the forehead, and one of the histopathology report had called it neurofibroma. You can see the total clearance of this tumor was done, and the patient completed radiotherapy, and he is also coming for his regular follow-ups. So MPNSTs, the typical age of presentation is 30 to 60 years, and they account for less than 5% of malignant soft tissue tumors. Most of them arise sporadic. Some of them are associated with neurofibromatosis type 1 and radiation. So clinically, the patient will complain of progressively enlarging mass in the extremities with or without neurological symptoms. The spinal tumors present with particular pain. They typically affect the large and the medium-sized nerves. Sciatic nerve is commonly involved, and one thing we should always remember is cranial nerve MPNSTs are rare, and when they occur, they always arise from the schwannoma. So these tumors have a size more than 5 centimeters, and the typical unencapsulated fusiform expansile masses, globular masses. The cut section is soft to hard, cream colored or gray areas. Areas of hemorrhages and necrosis are present. On histology, we see tightly packed neoplastic spindle cells. Now, the arrangement could be herringbone or interwoven fasciculated pattern. The nuclei are wavy, elongated with taper ends or even bucculed nuclei. They exhibit perivascular hypercellularity. The mitotic activity is more than 4 mitosis per 10 high power field. They will show features of neurofibroma, and they may show sometimes, or if they are sometimes they may not, and geographic necrosis is noted. The other features like pigmentation or HPC like areas may be found. So now ANNUB will show, I mean, at least 2 of the following features should be seen, that is cytologic atypia, loss of neurofibroma architecture, hypercellularity, and the mitotic count. So the low grade MPNSTs, they show features of ANNUB plus the mitotic index of 3 to 9 per 10 high power fields, and the high grade one will show at least 10 mitotic figures, or the mitosis should be between 3 to 9 per 10 high power field, which is combined with necrosis. So let's have a look at the immunoprofile. So S100 is expressed only in 50 to 70% of MPNST cases. It is more patchy in MPNST and diffuse. EGFR is expressed in 1/3 of MPNST and absent in cellular schwannomas. SOX10 now. Loss is seen in 75% of MPNSTs, whereas SOX10 expression is retained in cellular schwannomas. P16 and neurofibromin is lost in MPNST and positive in cellular schwannomas. P53 is expressed in 75% cases of MPNST, and INI1 is lost in 50% of cases. Now, HMB45 Milan A is done to differentiate it from malignant melanomas, and the MIB1 expression is usually, MIB1 count is more than 20%. Also, loss of H3K27ME3 was recently shown to be highly specific for MPNSTs. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for patient listening. If you
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am, for the informative and interesting talk. Now the session is open for questions. I hand over the mic to Sunita to continue with the question and answer session. Dr. Sunita, please.
Our speaker is available. So if any questions, you can unmute yourself, and or else you can raise your hand. You can ask the questions.
Hello.
Yeah,
Can I ask one question?
yeah, please. Dr. Bindu.
Yeah. What are the situations in which you would
Can
proceed
you
with the
be
ideal
loud,
sequencing?
little bit louder, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you are not audible. Your voice is not clear. Can you repeat it louder?
How's it now?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. My question is, in what all situations will you proceed with the IDH sequencing when the IDH IHC turn out to be negative?
When the IHC is negative, ideally as per WHO protocol, we should be going for the sequencing, and then only these tumors should be called IDH wild type.
Suppose a patient is, say, 60 years or above. Do you still go for a sequencing?
If you ask me personally, in Kolhapur, hardly do our patients go for sequencing.
Okay.
So only when the we try to tell the patient, and if they are willing, then only they go ahead with sequencing.
Thank
So,
you,
but
ma'am.
as
Thank
per
you.
WHO, before calling the tumor IDH wild type, we have to get done sequencing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
And regarding the last question, the MPNST, you said the H3K27 is also lost in MPNST.
Yeah.
Is an IHC for H3K27 sufficient in that scenario, or do we have to go for the molecular?
Molecular should be done. See, now it is lost.
Hmm.
So basically, you saw in our case, S100 was lost, SOX10 was also lost, and we got only two markers like CD99 and CD34, which is, you can say, aberrant, differentiation. So in that, only because we were knowing one of the report which I tried to retrieve, that it was a neurofibroma, it was very helpful in reporting. So you can go ahead. If the patient is willing, we can go ahead with molecular.
Okay. ma'am.
There is one more question. I cannot see the name of the person who has sent it. The question is IHC available for NGMT methylation status?
No, it should be done by molecular.
Okay, ma'am. Any other questions? Yeah. Dr. Saket Sharma wants to know, is it clinically relevant to do molecular subgrouping of ependymoma?
If you see the upcoming WHO, they have emphasized very much on that. And they are coming up with the new molecular categorization of the ependymomas.
So how clinically it's relevant is the question.
Yeah, it will help them in predicting the prognosis of the tumor and also targeting the therapy. Because now they have, the upcoming WHO has classified the ependymomas depending on the location and the molecular subtyping. So that is definitely going to help in the.
Thank you. So there is one more question. do we have to do BRAF mutations in grade 1 gliomas?
Yes, grade 1 gliomas like pilocytic astrocytomas show BRAF V600E mutations. PXAs do show that. So BRAF mutations are found in those tumors.
Any more questions, please?
Any question from the audience, students? Yes.
Anyways, if there are no more questions, and later if you have any questions, please do post in the chat box or in the WhatsApp group. We'll forward it to ma'am and we'll definitely try to get your answers. Thank you everyone for participating. Now we have come to end of the session. So now I request Dr. Ravindra Shinde sir to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sunita. We are at the fag end of this session. We had a very engaging presentation by Dr. Meghna Cholde with some of the very interesting cases of CNS tumors. She had a representation of cytological slides, squash smears, radiological images, and histological with IHC images. So she has tried to give a overall perspective of all the difficult cases she has come across. So this interesting webinar which we have organized today, I thank the President, Dr. Sanjay Patil, who has been a constant source of inspiration all along. Vice President Sri Satish Patil. I thank the Vice Chancellor Dr. Mudgal, Pro Vice Chancellor Dr. Shimpa Sharma, Dean Dr. Rakesh Sharma for the constant encouragement and words of wisdom which they have offered time and again. Our chairperson of the webinar, Dr. Mahadev Mani. And I should thank all the delegates. I should say that there are more than 300 registrations, which indicates the interest it has garnered in the pathology fraternity. I thank the organizing team, which includes the head of the department, Professor Dr. Mahadev Mani, Sunita Patil, Dr. R.S. Patil, and Dr. Professor, who was instrumental in introducing the guest speaker, our very own Sapna Deshpande, Monika, Vani, Namrata, Akshay, or in the registration committee, and the e-certificate committee. Thank Suraj for his audio-visual team and in connecting all the delegates, the residents, junior and senior residents, all the support staff, and I should not forget the MSc DCL also for allowing us to complete this session. So thank you, Meghna. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Before we wind up, I would like to remind, please do submit your duly filled feedback form. We are sharing the link on WhatsApp groups. Please do submit, and it's mandatory for certificate. Thank you, one and all, for your attendance, for your enthusiastic participation. Stay safe and stay healthy. Good day.
Thank you, Sunita. And all.
Any remarks from the audience?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Anybody want to make a remark from the audience?
Yeah, I am here, Dr. Zeenat. Sunita.
Yeah,
can you
Zeenat
hear
ma'am,
me?
please.
Yeah, very nice, interesting topic and excellent way arranged. Wonderful to see you all. Nice to see you all.
Ma'am, little louder.
Yeah, it was very nice session, well arranged, and nice to see you all here.
Same here, ma'am. Thank you for attending.
Yeah,
And thank
keep
you for
doing
sharing.
this so we can, yeah, please keep doing so we can have something online or Zoom like
Sure.
that.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you
All
for
the
your
best.
support. Thank you for encouraging.
All the
us.
best.